Sarah never imagined she'd spend her 55th birthday staring at a termination letter. Her hands trembled as she reread the words, though she already knew them by heart. Due to economic downturn, company restructuring, effective immediately. The letters blurred. A sharp, suffocating pressure tightened around her chest. Her breath hitched. No, not now. But the panic was already spreading, a cold, creeping sensation flooding her limbs. She clutched the edge of the kitchen table, knuckles white, struggling to steady herself. Focus, Sarah. Breathe. She tried to inhale, but it was shallow. Too fast. 4 in. Hold. 4 out. She gripped the wooden chair, willing herself to stay upright. But her mind wouldn't stop racing. What now? How will I pay the mortgage? Who hires a 55-year-old woman with no tech skills? What if I never find another job? The questions slammed into her like waves, each one harder to swallow than the last. The layoff email had arrived hours ago, but Sarah hadn't moved from the table since. The coffee in front of her had gone cold. The morning light had shifted, stretching long shadows across the unopened stack of bills beside her. She had always known this was a possibility. The factory had been struggling for months, contracts drying up, rumors of layoffs swirling in hushed conversations. But she had convinced herself she was safe. 23 years at Lone Star Apparel. Loyal. Experienced. Reliable. None of it had mattered. A door creaked upstairs, followed by the heavy footsteps of her daughter, Lily. 17, permanently glued to her phone, and blissfully unaware that their world had just shattered. Sarah's breath was still uneven, but she forced herself to sit up straighter. She couldn't let Lily see her like this. Not yet. She swallowed hard, wiped her damp palms against her jeans, and reached for her laptop. The screen glowed back at her, blank and expectant. Job boards, LinkedIn, freelance sites, she clicked aimlessly, scrolling through listing after listing, her pulse still too fast, her vision still too tight. AI-driven inventory management. E-commerce analytics. Proficiency in cloud-based workflow automation required. It was like reading another language. She was outdated. A relic. The panic threatened to rise again, but just as she was about to shut the laptop, something caught her eye. An article headline. The rise of sustainable fashion, how small designers are transforming waste into style. Her fingers hovered over the trackpad. Sustainable fashion. She had heard the term before, but she had never paid much attention. Fashion was about mass production, factories, efficiency, not scraps, not leftovers. But something about it felt different. A flicker of curiosity sparked beneath the exhaustion. She clicked. And without realizing it, Sarah took the first step towards something she never saw coming. Sarah sat motionless, rereading the article. It was filled with stories of small-scale designers, people who took discarded materials and turned them into something beautiful. Old denim transformed into high-fashion jackets. Vintage lace repurposed for luxury scarves. Waste turned into worth. Something about it struck a nerve. She thought about Lone Star Apparel, about the bins of fabric scraps tossed away every week, wasted because they weren't usable. She had spent years ensuring quality, rejecting pieces with minor flaws, knowing they'd never make it to production. All that fabric. All those possibilities. A distant memory surfaced, one she hadn't thought about in years. Her grandmother, bent over an old Singer sewing machine, stitching together scraps of fabric into a patchwork quilt. Nothing goes to waste, Sarah, she used to say. Everything can have a second life if you know how to see it. A second life. The thought buzzed in the back of her mind as she pushed back from the table and grabbed her car keys. The Lone Star Apparel warehouse loomed at the edge of town, an industrial block of concrete and steel. Sarah hadn't been back since the layoff, and as she pulled into the empty lot, an unease settled in her chest. The loading dock door was cracked open. Inside, the familiar hum of sewing machines was gone, replaced by silence. The company had slashed its workforce, outsourcing most of its production overseas. What remained was a skeleton crew. She stepped inside cautiously. "Sarah?" The voice belonged to Rosa, a longtime seamstress who had worked at Lone Star even longer than she had. The older woman wiped her hands on her apron, eyes widening. "What are you doing here?" Sarah hesitated. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but before she could second-guess herself, the words tumbled out. "You still throwing out fabric scraps?" Rosa let out a dry laugh. "Always. Boxes of it." "Why?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Because I need to do something. Because I can't just sit at home and feel useless." But she only said, "Can I take some?" Rosa tilted her head. "For what?" Sarah didn't have an answer. Not yet. But as she loaded her trunk with boxes of discarded fabric, a flicker of something stirred inside her, a feeling she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. That night, under the soft glow of the kitchen light, Sarah ran her hands over the fabric scraps, feeling their textures: denim, canvas, cotton. These were remnants, once deemed useless, now waiting for a second chance. Just like her. Her hands moved instinctively, like muscle memory. She cut, pinned, stitched. The rhythm of it was familiar, comforting. By the time she stepped back, a rough prototype lay before her, a simple tote bag, frayed at the edges, uneven in places, but whole. She ran her fingers over the seams, feeling something shift deep inside her. It wasn't perfect. But it was a start. And she wasn't done yet. Sarah didn't waste time. The moment Lily scribbled Phoenix on the notepad, something inside her clicked. For the first time since losing her job, she felt a spark of direction, not just a desperate attempt to stay afloat, but the beginnings of something real. She spent the next few days refining her designs, experimenting with different fabrics, and figuring out how to turn AI-generated concepts into tangible products. The learning curve was steep. AI tools could create stunning digital mock-ups, but translating them into something that actually worked was another challenge entirely. Some fabrics were too stiff, others too flimsy. Some designs looked elegant on screen but turned out impractical in real life. Lily, surprisingly, was patient. Well, patient for a teenager, until the conversation shifted to money. "So, how much are you selling these for?" Lily asked, casually flipping through Sarah's sketches. Sarah hesitated. "I don't know yet. I want to make them affordable." Lily's eyebrows shot up. "Mom, no. You can't just make them affordable. If you price too low, people won't take you seriously. And if we're going to do this together, I should get a cut, right?" Sarah blinked. "A cut?" Lily shrugged. "I mean, I am handling the website, the branding, the social media. Without me, this is just you sewing bags in the kitchen." A flare of irritation sparked in Sarah's chest. "Lily, this isn't about making a fortune. It's about giving these materials a second life, giving myself a second life." Lily rolled her eyes. "Right, but you also need money to live. If you don't charge enough, this whole thing crashes before it even starts." Sarah exhaled, rubbing her temple. She hated to admit it, but Lily had a point. If Phoenix was going to survive, she had to think like a businesswoman, not just a seamstress. Lily took a seat across from her, arms crossed. "Look, if you don't want to give me a cut, fine. But if I'm helping, I at least want a say in the designs. No offense, but some of these," she gestured at the pile of fabric, "look like they belong at a farmer's market in the 90s. Sarah scoffed. "Excuse me?" Lily smirked. "I'm just saying. People don't just buy stuff because it's handmade. They buy it because it's a brand. You need a whole vibe." Sarah sighed. She had spent decades in the fashion industry, but this was an entirely different world. She wasn't just competing with mass-produced retail anymore, she was competing with Instagram aesthetics, TikTok trends, and influencer-driven culture. "Okay," Sarah finally said. We'll figure out the branding together. Lily grinned. Now you're thinking like an entrepreneur. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, they had a plan. Lily would handle the digital side, creating an Instagram page, a TikTok account, and a Shopify store. Meanwhile, Sarah focused on perfecting the first real prototype of the Phoenix tote. That night, Sarah spread the fabric scraps across the dining table, carefully stitching together a pattern Lily had approved. The whir of the sewing machine filled the room, steady and rhythmic. She wasn't just making a bag. She was building something new, for herself, for Lily, and for whatever future lay ahead. Sarah knew better than to press Lily for a straight answer. A maybe from her daughter was already a small victory. Instead of pushing, she let the moment settle and turned her attention back to the bag on the table. It was a prototype, imperfect, unfinished, but now, the idea had weight. It was no longer just a fleeting thought. It was real. By mid-afternoon, she had pulled out her old sewing machine and spread the fabric scraps across the living room floor. The whirring of the needle filled the quiet space as she experimented with different shapes, stitches, and patterns. She lost track of time, falling into a familiar rhythm, the same one she had known in the factory but with a new kind of freedom. There was no supervisor checking her work, no strict quality control guidelines. Just her, the fabric, and the possibility of something new. Lily reappeared later, phone still in hand, scrolling as usual. "So, I was looking into that AI thing," she said casually, flopping onto the couch. "You know, if you want the bags to look like, I don't know, actual fashion pieces and not just, like, stuff someone's grandma made." Sarah's hands froze mid-stitch. "Excuse me?" Lily smirked. "I'm just saying. You need branding, Mom. A whole vibe." She held up her phone screen, showing Sarah a sleek, modern tote bag sketch, something generated by an AI design tool. "This is the kind of stuff people want. Sustainable, yes, but also trendy." Sarah took the phone reluctantly, examining the design. It was minimalist but sophisticated, far from the simple patchwork style she had started with. She hated to admit it, but Lily had a point. "And how exactly do I make something like this?" Lily shrugged. "AI generates the design, you tweak it, and then you sew it." She sat up, tapping her phone rapidly. "Oh, and we need a name. Something catchy." Sarah hesitated. "I haven't thought that far." Lily made a dramatic sigh. "Mom. You can't start a brand without a name." Sarah leaned back, considering. A name. Something meaningful. Something that represented not just the bags but the journey she was on, the reinvention, the resilience. Her eyes drifted back to the first bag she had sewn, the one made from scraps of discarded fabric. Like a phoenix rising from ashes. She exhaled, almost smiling. "Phoenix." Lily blinked. "Huh." She tilted her head, considering. "Not bad. Kinda symbolic, I guess." Sarah gave her a look. "Kinda?" Lily smirked. "Alright, fine. It's actually good." She grabbed a notepad from the coffee table and scribbled the name down. "Now we just need a logo, a website, a social media presence, and, oh yeah, more than one bag." Sarah let out a soft laugh. She had spent the past month drowning in uncertainty, believing she had no place in this new world. But here she was, sitting beside her daughter, planning something that didn't just feel like survival. It felt like a new beginning. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't obsolete after all. Orders kept pouring in. By the next morning, the website had over 300 sales, more than Sarah had ever imagined. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, purchase confirmations, customer messages, Instagram tags. Women across the country were sharing stories of reinvention, of finding purpose later in life, of supporting businesses that aligned with their values. Phoenix wasn't just selling bags. It was selling hope. But as Sarah stared at the mounting list of orders, a new kind of fear settled in her chest. How am I supposed to make 300 bags, she muttered, running a hand through her hair. Lily, perched on the couch with her laptop, barely looked up. You aren't. Sarah frowned. What do you mean? We can't just not fill the orders. Lily sighed like she was explaining something painfully obvious. Mom, this is a good problem. It means you need to scale up. Get help. Sarah let out a dry laugh. I don't have the money to hire people, Lily. Lily typed something into her laptop and spun the screen toward her. What about other women like you? People who lost their jobs? There's gotta be a ton of skilled seamstresses looking for work. Sarah hesitated. That thought hadn't even crossed her mind. Lily clicked a few more times. Look, there's a Facebook group, Women in Texas Looking for Textile Jobs. Post something. Sarah took a deep breath and started typing. Looking for experienced seamstresses to join a new sustainable fashion project. Must be willing to work with upcycled materials. Flexible hours. Women supporting women. Let's rise together. She hit post before she could second-guess herself. Within an hour, replies started coming in. 50. 70. Over 100. Women, some who had worked in factories just like Sarah, others who had been sewing from home for years, all looking for a fresh start. Some had lost jobs, some had been out of the workforce for decades, and some, like Sarah, were just looking for a way forward. By the end of the week, Sarah had gathered a small team. Rosa, one of the seamstresses from her old factory, was the first to join. Then came Angela, a single mother who had been laid off from a department store. Miriam, a retired dressmaker, wanted something meaningful to do again. The dining room turned into a makeshift production space, stacks of fabric scraps organized by color, sewing machines humming late into the night. Women sat together, stitching, laughing, sharing stories. One evening, as Sarah packed up another round of orders, her phone buzzed with a new notification. Lily gasped. Mom. You need to see this. Sarah wiped her hands on her jeans and took the phone. On the screen was an email, not from a customer, not from an influencer, but from a major retail chain. Dear Phoenix team. We are incredibly impressed by your brand's commitment to sustainability and craftsmanship. We'd love to discuss a potential partnership to bring your designs to a wider audience. Sarah's breath caught. A big box retailer? This was the kind of opportunity that could change everything. But as the excitement settled, a creeping doubt followed. Big retailers meant mass production. Would they still be able to use upcycled fabric? Would they have to outsource labor, abandoning the very women Phoenix was built to support? Lily, practically vibrating with excitement, grabbed Sarah's arm. Mom. This is huge. Imagine Phoenix in every store across the country. Sarah hesitated, staring at the email. This wasn't just about selling bags anymore. This was about who they were and what they stood for. That night, she barely slept. She thought about the women who had come to Phoenix for a fresh start. About Rosa, who had been told she was too old to work. About Angela, who had struggled to find child-friendly jobs. About Miriam, who thought her best years were behind her. By morning, she knew her answer. At the next production meeting, she gathered her team and took a deep breath. We got an offer, she said, watching their faces light up. A big one. A murmur of excitement rippled through the group. But then she continued. And we're turning it down. Silence. Then Rosa, the seamstress who had first helped her at the factory, nodded slowly. You're protecting what we built, Rosa said. Sarah exhaled, relieved. Yes. This isn't just about making bags. It's about us. Lily leaned against the table, arms crossed, a small smile tugging at her lips. Well, she said, guess we'll just have to make Phoenix bigger our own way. Sarah grinned. Exactly. And so, Phoenix continued, not as a mass-market brand, but as a movement. The team expanded, new artisans joined, and women across the country rallied behind them, proving that success wasn't about scale, it was about impact. Sarah had started this journey feeling obsolete, tossed aside like the fabric scraps she now transformed into something meaningful. But she had learned something powerful. Reinvention wasn't just possible. It was unstoppable. The momentum behind Phoenix showed no signs of slowing. Orders kept rolling in, and Sarah's small team of seamstresses worked tirelessly to keep up. The energy in the workshop was electric. Women who had once felt discarded now had a purpose, a craft, and a community. But with success came new challenges. One afternoon, as Sarah packed another shipment, Rosa approached her, looking uneasy. "Sarah, we need to talk," she said, glancing around at the women working in the small production space. "The team is worried. Orders are up, but the pay, it's still the same." Sarah's stomach twisted. She had been so focused on keeping up with demand that she hadn't stopped to think about pay raises. Rosa hesitated, then added, "Some of the women are thinking about leaving if things don't change." Sarah's mind raced. Phoenix was still fragile. Every dollar was being reinvested. Raising wages meant cutting costs elsewhere, or increasing prices. But if she didn't, she'd lose the very people who had helped build this. She sat at the kitchen table that night, spreadsheets open, running calculations over and over. If she raised wages, how much could she afford? Would customers be willing to pay more for the bags? Was there a way to balance fair pay and business growth without sacrificing Phoenix's values? She thought about the big box retailers she had turned down. Maybe she should have taken their offer. Maybe she had been too idealistic. Or maybe, there was another way. After hours of crunching numbers, she made a decision. The next morning, she gathered her team in the workshop. "You're right," Sarah said. "Phoenix isn't just about making bags. It's about taking care of the people who make them." She took a deep breath. "Starting next month, we're raising wages. It won't be a huge jump all at once, but it'll be steady, and as we grow, so will your pay." Rosa's face softened. Some of the women teared up, exchanging relieved glances. Sarah wasn't naive, she knew it would be tough. But she also knew why she had started this in the first place. Phoenix wasn't just about recycling fabric. It was about rebuilding lives. And she wasn't about to abandon that now. Months later, Sarah sat at her sewing station, running her fingers over the latest Phoenix tote, a sleek, modern design created in collaboration with her daughter, Lily. The brand had evolved, but its heart had remained the same. Lily was busy in the corner, recording a Q&A video for their growing YouTube audience. The screen showed a flood of comments from women across the country, women who saw themselves in Sarah's story. Sarah smiled as she read one out loud. "How do you balance work and life at 55? I want to start something, but I feel like it's too late." She looked at the camera and answered directly. "It's never too late. You're not too old. You're not outdated. You're not finished. You just have to find where you belong." She had. And Phoenix was just getting started. Sarah's story isn't just her own. It's the story of countless women who have been told their time is up, who have been cast aside, only to rise again. It's a story of reinvention, resilience, and the power of second chances. So many people, especially women in their 50s and beyond, are told that once they lose a job, their best years are behind them. But Sarah's journey proves otherwise. She didn't just find a way to survive, she built something meaningful. She took what others discarded and turned it into a thriving brand, a community, and a movement. And most importantly, she reconnected with her daughter, bridging the gap between generations through creativity and determination. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think about Sarah's story? Do you relate to her journey? What do you think about her decision to turn down the big retail offer? If you loved this story and found it inspiring, comment 2 below. If you didn't connect with it, comment 7, and let us know why. If Sarah's journey resonated with you, let us know. And if you love hearing stories of resilience and second chances, join our community by subscribing to EN True Tales. Natalie, your storyteller. will be back soon with another inspiring journey. Natalie, your storyteller, will be back soon with another inspiring journey, so make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. We can't wait to read your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.